Hi, I'm Jake, 32, and when my parents handed my younger brother a $40,000 college fund and told me I'd learn more flipping burgers, I didn't even yell. I just walked away and never looked back. They called it fair. I called it emotional eviction. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because my work boots were still soaked from the lunch rush, and I'd just finished my second double shift in 3 days. I was wiping down the counters at the burger joint I'd worked at since senior year of high school, and no, not as a manager. Just shift lead. The kind of title they give you when they want you to do extra work without the extra pay. That's when I got the text. Family dinner tonight. Big announcement. 7 p.m., don't be late. Mom. I didn't even want to go. But something about the words big announcement made me curious. Or maybe I was just still naive enough to hope. I clocked out, changed into something that didn't smell like fryer oil, and drove across town to the house I once called home. Haven't lived there in 5 years, but the key still worked. That, I'd soon learn, was about to change. When I walked into the kitchen, my little brother Nate was already at the table, smug as a cat in a sunbeam. Mom was plating lasagna like it was a Michelin dinner, and Dad was nursing his usual glass of scotch, staring into the middle distance like a discount philosopher. No one said hi. So what's the announcement? I asked. Nate grinned like he'd already won. I got into NYU. I blinked. Not because I didn't think he could, the kid's smart, I'll give him that, but because I'd forgotten college was even on the table. No one had mentioned he was applying out of state. Mom clapped dramatically like she was on a talk show. Isn't that incredible? Our baby, going to New York. Dad nodded like it was his idea. Then came the bomb. We're giving him the college fund, Mom said casually, like she was announcing dinner. The one we saved for both of you. I froze. What? I said. Dad shrugged. It's $40,000. He'll still need loans, but it'll help. You're working. You've got experience. We figured it was only fair. Only fair. Those words burned. Because I was the one who skipped college to help cover bills when Dad lost his job. I was the one who worked full-time at 18 while Nate still had a carpool to high school and never had to touch a mop. I'd asked once, just once, about the college fund when I was graduating. Dad had laughed. College isn't for everyone. You're a hands-on kind of guy. I was told I'd learn more working. Character building. Real-world education. And now suddenly? NYU was a dream worth investing in. I sat there in silence, the garlic bread untouched on my plate. Nate leaned back, smug. Don't be salty, man. You always said college wasn't your thing. He actually winked. That was the moment something cracked. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a fit. I didn't even make a speech. I stood up, dropped my fork gently onto the plate, and said, Cool. Congrats. I won't be staying for dessert. I walked out the front door and never used that key again. They didn't call. 3 days later, I got a Venmo request from Nate for $40. Gas money, it said. I didn't pay it. Instead, I started paying attention. That weekend, I pulled my old boxes out of my apartment closet and found the financial aid documents I'd filled out at 17. Blank. Never submitted. Because my parents wanted to think about it. I found the brochure for the local community college I wanted to attend back then. Still pristine. Because I never even got to enroll. They'd said we couldn't afford it. But somehow now, 40 grand was just sitting there, waiting for the golden child. I looked at my bank balance, under $200, and then at the documents again. And I started drafting a letter. Not to them. To me. It started. Dear Jake, this wasn't your fault. Then, you gave up your shot so someone else could have one, and they never even said thank you. It ended with something simple. Go live the life they never made room for. 2 weeks later, I quit my job. 3 weeks later, I booked a one-way ticket out of state. No announcement. Just one text to my parents. Thanks for the lesson. I finally learned what fairness looks like. They never replied. But Nate posted a photo at NYU orientation a month later. Couldn't have done it without my amazing parents. #blessed, #gifted. I smiled. Then I blocked all of them. Because if they think I'll be the lesson, they've got it backward. I'm the wake-up call they never saw coming. I landed in Portland with 2 bags, $167 in checking, and no plan beyond get a job, any job, and start over somewhere they don't know your last name. The Airbnb I'd booked was a tiny studio above someone's garage. The host was a retired florist named Joe and who gave me banana bread and told me I looked like someone in the middle of an epiphany. She wasn't wrong. It rained for 3 days straight. I walked to every shop on the block asking about work. Ended up behind the counter at a 24-hour gym, wiping down elliptical machines and restocking protein bars. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. No Nate. No fairness speeches. Just me and the hum of treadmills. At night I wrote. Not a novel or anything dramatic, just a daily letter to the version of me that still flinched when he thought about home. I kept them in a Google Doc titled Debt That Isn't Money. Stuff like, Dear Jake, you weren't lazy. You were tired. You were holding up a family no one realized was collapsing. Dear Jake, it's not ungrateful to want more than breadcrumbs when you helped bake the bread. Every time I wrote one, the grip loosened a little. Then came January. I was on shift at the gym, manning the front desk, when this woman came in soaked from the rain. Hair plastered, dripping all over the yoga mats by the door. I offered her a towel. She laughed and said, I don't even want to work out. I just needed to escape my roommates. Her name was Claire. She was 30, a bakery assistant, and 3 years out of an engagement she called romantic purgatory. I told her I just divorced my family. We bonded. Fast. She started showing up at the gym every Friday around midnight, not to work out, just to talk. We'd sit on the rubber floor mats sipping vending machine tea and swapping stories. Hers were about failed startup boyfriends and pastry burns. Mine were about Nate. She said, You talk like someone who's always been told he's replaceable. That sentence hit harder than it should have. Because yeah, that was the core of it. I was the good enough for now kid. The utility son. The one who stepped in when the light bulb went out, when the lawn needed mowing, when the fridge made that weird noise. I was the person they expected to fix everything without needing anything fixed in return. Claire said, My ex used to say I was low maintenance, and it sounded like a compliment until I realized it was code for I can ignore your needs entirely. That night, I went home and wrote the longest letter yet. Dear Jake, you were never the backup plan. They just never made room for you in the first place. 3 months in Portland and I was still broke, still figuring it out. But something had shifted. Then I got the email. Subject line. Can we talk? Sender Mom. I didn't open it for 3 days. When I finally did, it read, Nate's really struggling at school. It's a lot harder than he expected. We were hoping you could maybe talk to him? He listens to you. That last part made me laugh out loud. Listens to me? Nate hadn't listened to me since he learned how to tie his own shoes. Attached was a screenshot of Nate's grades, 2 Ds and a C-. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to Claire with the caption, The golden child is rusting. She sent back a gif of someone popping champagne. But the real twist came a week later. Dad called. I don't know how he got my new number. Maybe through one of my old coworkers or a forgotten bank record. All I know is I looked down during my lunch break and saw the name flash across the screen, Dad, maybe. I let it ring. Then ring again. On the 4th call, I answered. He didn't even say hello. Just, You need to stop punishing us. I stared at the sidewalk. He continued, You disappeared. Blocked us. Your mother is beside herself. This isn't how family handles conflict. I almost said, You mean like giving one son a $40,000 gift and telling the other to go flip patties? But I didn't. I just said, You made a choice. So did I. His voice dropped to that tone I knew too well, the one that sounded like a boss at a job you can't afford to lose. You think you're better than us now? I said, No. I just don't think I owe you my silence anymore. Then I hung up. That night, I bought a second-hand bike and pedaled in the rain until my legs gave out. I wasn't running away anymore. I was just moving forward. In May, Claire got promoted to head baker. I celebrated by showing up at her apartment with a six-pack and a grocery store cake that said, "You did it, Carb Queen." She laughed for 10 straight minutes. Then she said, "What would happen if you stopped waiting for them to apologize?" I didn't have an answer. So instead, I wrote one more letter. This one didn't start with, "Dear Jake." It started with, "To the version of me who still checks the mailbox for something he'll never get, here's your permission to stop." By summer, I'd saved enough to move out of the garage apartment. Claire and I rented a tiny place together. 2 bedrooms. One shared dream, make something of ourselves they'll never get to claim credit for. Nate texted me once. "You really not gonna help me?" I replied. "I already did. I gave you the fund they told me didn't exist." He left me on read. My mom sent a birthday card. It said, "We miss you. You'll always be our son." I didn't write back. Because love with strings isn't love. It's leverage. And I'm done being their collateral. Claire found the envelope first. It was a nondescript white square, no return address, just Jake Matthews scrawled in familiar cursive. My name, in my mom's handwriting. She placed it gently on our tiny shared kitchen table like it might explode. "Do you want me to open it?" she asked, half joking. I shook my head. "I already know what's inside." I was wrong. It wasn't a letter. It was a photocopy of a check. $40,000. Made out to Nathaniel Matthews. Memo line. College fund transfer. Date, 5 days after my high school graduation. That's when the timeline hit me. They hadn't been saving that money for both of us. They'd already decided who it belonged to, before Nate even started college. Before I ever asked about school. Before I agreed to work full-time at the Burger Shack so we could keep the lights on. Claire read the date and whispered, "Holy hell." Inside the envelope was a sticky note. "We thought you should know the truth. I didn't agree with how they handled it. Aunt Mel." I hadn't talked to Aunt Mel since I was 17. She was my dad's sister, the one who always sent Target gift cards and signed birthday cards with, "Keep going. You're stronger than you know." I sat down on the floor. Not the chair. The floor. Like the ground was the only thing still holding me. Claire knelt beside me and said the words I didn't know I needed. "You didn't imagine it. They really did pick him." That night I didn't sleep. I reread the check date 100 times. I dug through my old Google Docs, my old letters to myself. I found one I wrote the night I turned 20, the one where I tried to forgive them, just to breathe easier. "Dear Jake," maybe they didn't know any better. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they thought they were being fair. Maybe you just weren't the college type. I highlighted that whole paragraph and deleted it. Because no. They knew. They chose. And they let me believe for a decade that it was a coincidence. I mailed the copy of the check back to my parents with one post-it note. "Thank you for confirming what I always knew. Jake." No letter. No sarcasm. Just truth. Nate messaged me the same day. One sentence. "Did you really have to drag them into your bitterness?" I replied. "I didn't drag anyone. I just stopped lying for them." He didn't respond. Claire took me out that night. Said we were celebrating. I asked what exactly we were celebrating, 10 years of being lied to? She said, "No. We're celebrating that you're finally out of the gaslight. That's worth champagne." We split a bottle of cheap Prosecco on the fire escape and watched the city lights blink like a Morse code I was just starting to learn how to read. Then it got messier. 3 days after I sent the envelope back, I got a call from my mom's boss. Not joking. Turns out she works as a secretary for a local private school and used her office address as the return for the envelope she'd mailed me through Aunt Mel. The administrator, Mr. Harland, called me, furious, saying, "Your mother's been crying in the supply closet for an hour. What kind of son sends hate mail to his parents?" I calmly said. "I sent them a copy of a check they wrote. That's it." He didn't know what to say after that. Apparently, the truth was considered hate when spoken by the wrong child. Claire suggested I print a bumper sticker. I upset my mom by finding out she lied. Now I'm the villain. Instead, I got a new phone number. And for the first time, I changed my emergency contact to Claire. Not my parents. Not Nate. Not Mom's cell. It felt like clicking. Save as. On my own damn life. 1 week later, I got an unexpected email. Subject: We'd like to make things right. Sender: Nate Matthews. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. It was long. Rambling. Defensive. I didn't know about the check. They told me it was always for me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't even want to go to NYU. I wanted to do music. But they said it was non-negotiable. I didn't know what they told you. I thought you didn't care about college. That's what Mom said. I kept reading. I know I've been a dick. I don't know how to undo it. But you deserve to know, you were never the problem. They just made it easier to choose me. I read that line 10 times. They made it easier to choose me. Like I was a complicated menu item. Too many ingredients. Too many sides. Too real. Claire said. Are you going to reply? I said. Eventually. And I will. But not yet. First, I needed to let that sentence sit. I walked to the park that night. Sat under a street lamp. Wrote one more letter. Not to myself. Not to Nate. To them. Dear Mom and Dad. I don't want the money. I don't want the apology. I don't even want the explanation. I just want you to admit it. That you made a choice. That you looked at 2 sons, and one felt easier to root for. That one of us was messy and tired and already working. And the other still had time to be perfect. That I was convenient to forget. And you did. I printed the letter. Folded it. Burned it in a coffee mug on the balcony. Watched the ash lift and scatter like all the versions of me I used to twist into a pretzel just to stay fair. No more. No more symmetry. No more silence. Next comes what I built, without their help. 6 months later, I opened my first freelance design studio. Nothing fancy. Just a one-room office above a vintage record shop, with a desk I found on Craigslist and a coffee maker that sounded like it was clearing its throat every time it brewed. But it was mine. No time cards. No boss telling me I'd never be management material because I looked too tired. Just quiet, focus, and a window that let in enough light to make me feel real. I called it Northline Studio. Claire helped me pick the name. Said it sounded like something with direction. You're not running from them anymore, she said. You're running towards something. She was right. I'd spent so long being reactive, leaving, blocking, grieving the things I never got, I hadn't thought about what I actually wanted to build. So I started building. I took every gig that came my way. Designed posters for local bands, menus for food trucks, even hand-lettered a chalkboard sign for a bookstore that paid me in cash and oat milk lattes. Didn't matter. It was all practice. All steps forward. Claire would come by with croissants on Sundays and sit across from me while I worked. Once, she asked, "Do you think they ever talk about you now? Like your parents?" I shrugged. Probably. I imagine I'm the ungrateful one who chose bitterness. She raised an eyebrow. You chose oxygen. Yeah. That felt more accurate. Then, one morning in February, I got the letter. Actual mail. Not a text. Not an email. A cream-colored envelope, thick like a wedding invitation, addressed in clean cursive. Return address: Nathaniel Matthews. New York, New York. I stared at it for a full minute. Claire found me on the porch 10 minutes later, still holding it like it might disappear. You okay? Depends what's in this. She handed me scissors. Open it. Then we'll make pancakes. Inside was a check. $20,000. Memo. Half. I can't undo what happened. But I can try to even the scale. Folded around it was a note. Handwritten. Short. Jake. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I benefited from a lie that cost you years. But I've dropped out. NYU wasn't mine. It never was. I'm starting over too. This is yours, or at least, what I owe of it. Use it however you want. Or burn it. I just needed you to know, I'm done pretending I deserve more. Nate. I sat down slowly. Not because of the money. Because of the honesty. It was the first time in my entire life that Nate had stepped out of the shadow we were both shoved into, and spoken like a brother, not a beneficiary. Claire read the letter over my shoulder and whispered, "Well, damn." I didn't cash the check right away. Instead, I pinned it to my corkboard. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. That truth, real, unvarnished, gut-punch truth, changes things. Not fast. Not cleanly. But deeply. A month later, Nate called. I let it go to voicemail. He said, "I'm back in town for a bit. Thought maybe we could grab coffee. No expectations. Just two people trying not to screw up again." I played it twice. Then I called him back. We met at a tiny cafe by the river. He looked different. Tired like me. Worn around the eyes. But there was no smugness. No future senator energy. Just a guy in thrifted flannel and a chipped thermos, hoping not to be turned away. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. We just sat down, sipped our drinks, and stared at the water. Finally, he said, "Mom still thinks I'm making a mistake." I asked. "Trying to be honest, or giving me the money?" "Both." We both laughed. "First time in years." He said, "You know, they're never going to apologize." "I know. They still think they were right. That they were nurturing potential." I looked at him. "Which one of us do you think had more of it?" Nate smiled, sad and true. "You did." But I was easier to brag about. I nodded. Not bitter. Just confirmed. He said, "They might never change, Jake. But we don't have to live in their echo." We clinked mugs. No toast. Just truth. The last thing he said before we parted was, "I'm not trying to make us whole again. I'm just trying to make sure you know it was never your fault." And weirdly, that stuck more than anything. Because I had spent so many years wondering if I asked for it. If I didn't push hard enough. If I accepted too little. Turns out, I was just the kid who didn't throw a tantrum. And they took that as permission. 6 months after that meeting, Claire and I bought a house. It's small. Old floors, creaky windows, and a backyard full of blackberry vines that attack you if you get too confident. But it's home. I used the money Nate gave me to fix the roof and install a skylight in my office. Every time I look up and see the sky bleeding through, I think, this is what oxygen feels like. We didn't invite my parents to the housewarming. They wouldn't have come. But Nate showed up with a gift, a ceramic mug with the words, "Emotional Eviction Survivor," in gold foil. We laughed until we cried. People always ask me if I forgave them. The truth is, I stopped needing to. Forgiveness implies you're still waiting for someone to see you. I stopped waiting. I wrote my own damn ending. And here it is. I wasn't the quiet one. I was the silenced one. And now? Now I'm loud in all the right ways. With love that doesn't need proof. With a home built on boundaries, not breadcrumbs. With a partner who never made me earn kindness. And with a brother who finally learned that being the favorite doesn't mean being right. I was never broke. I was robbed. And now I've taken it back, quietly, completely, and without their permission. Because fair doesn't mean even. It means honest. And I finally got there. The long way. But I got there.